Welcome back to another We Ourselves, and today in this video I want to give my quick spoiler-less review of the new Netflix show Rebel Moon Part 1 Child of Fire. As I said, I expect this to be a spoiler-free review because I plan to do a more in-depth review of the series later on. And in that one, I will go in and I will spoil the heck out of it because I have a lot of things to talk about. We have the release of Rebel Moon Part 1 Child of Fire. As everybody know, this is Zack Snyder's big effort that is on Netflix. As the story goes, originally he went to Lucasfilm and he proposed this idea to them and they rejected it. So he was able to parlay a deal with Netflix and he was able to bring Rebel Moon forward. And a lot of people are talking about it's going to be possibly a replacement for Star Wars. In my opinion, Rebel Moon does not replace Star Wars, and I'll explain why. When we look at the Rebel Moon score on Rotten Tomatoes, we see it has a critic score of 24 and an audience score of 65. I will say here that I'm probably somewhere in between, but I lean more towards the critics' score than I do the rather low audience score. First thing I want to say is there are a lot of stunning visuals in here. Zack Snyder really knows how to do that. He's really good at creating atmosphere, particularly when in the flashbacks for Cora, who's played by Sofia Boutella. Those are really nicely done. We have a lot of use of the slow-mo camera work and action shots. Those are really meant to give you comic book panels. So we have a lot of that in all the action scenes, maybe a little too much. The visuals, the sense of scale, the different planets we go to, there's a lot that went into this. It looks very beautiful. Again, it looks very stunning. I have to give them credit for the action sequences when you have the main character of Cora, when she goes into her action scenes. She's super competent and she's super capable, but it never comes off as cartoonish because there's always that edge to the action where you're not sure if she's not going to get cut or hit. And so there's that edge. She's not just flawlessly doing all these things like some kind of droid or a robot. She's human. And so I will give them credit for a lot of her action scenes. All of those, I think, is what's fueling the stronger audience score. And I have a feeling that a lot of the people that are going to come away and say that this is a good or interesting series are going to do that solely on the strength of the visuals that, again, Zack Snyder does very well, and not on the story and the characterization. And unfortunately, for me, that's the biggest problem. And I was talking with a friend about this, and we were talking about Zack Snyder, and we were talking about all the movies he did. And it occurred to us that the ones that are the most popular and critically acclaimed are ones that are all based on somebody else's work. Somebody else wrote the original material. He didn't. He was doing an adaptation. Here, if I'm not mistaken, this idea is totally his. He hasn't lost his ability for the visual flair. He really gets that right, but it's the storyline and the characters, and for me that's the biggest problem. You do a lot of planet hopping in this movie, and it isn't just you're hopping to a planet to get each new person. When you go to this planet, in some cases you're jumping into the middle of an ongoing story which you have no clue about, let alone any clue who these new people are. To me, it's like it did not achieve what, say, the Suicide Squad was able to do, because they had a mission and you got to learn these people over the course of the movie. It did not do what James Gunn did with Guardians of the Galaxy, because first of all, you see Quill and everybody trying to get that object, and they're coming up against each other, and you're seeing how they all work. Then when they do the jailbreak, brings the Guardians of the Galaxy together. We don't have anything like that in this movie. The main character, Cora, goes on this mission. First of all, she's not even connected to the village where she is, and you'll see it when you watch it. And again, like I said, she was going to walk away even though she knew what was in store for these people, but because of her actions, they're guaranteed to be wiped out. So now she's obligated to go and find some people to save them. And keep in mind, in the story, there is a rebellion, but none of them are part of the rebellion. So that's the other weird thing about this story. But anyway, we go and we meet each one of these characters. We don't know who they are. Sometimes we're jumping into the middle of a story that they're already got going on, and then we just meet up with them. In some cases, the people that is already with Cora, they sit back and watch the new person go through their action scene, don't participate, and then they go on to the next person. So you're inundated with all these new locations, all these new characters, all these new characters' names. As a video game, this will be fantastic because on each mission, you can go on each world and you can go in and you can learn the backstory, and undoubtedly those cutaway scenes and stuff like that are going to be fantastic for the game, because I think he's doing a game and comic and all that stuff. But as a movie, it's just too much coming too fast and you're not getting anything, and I I found myself not connected not only to the main character, but to the rest of the people. There are some issues, in my opinion, with some tone deafness. I'm wondering and saying to myself, where are the sensitivity watchers and screeners? Yes, it's a diverse cast, but the way it's done, even that, I have some questions with. When we actually meet the actual rebels, some of them actually choose to go with it, but we don't know who they are, and some people are taken out and we never know who they are, and we never see these characters really work together. The villains, particularly one in particular, was way too cartoonish and was telegraphing exactly what he was going to do from the minute he was on screen. Things happen in this series, in my opinion, for the plot point. Even the thing that makes her, Cora, do what she does that gets the village in trouble, it was handled to me, so weird that it was nothing but a plot point. You have some characters who die just so they can be motivations for another character who we don't know anything about. The entire time I'm watching this first part, I am not connected to any of these characters because they aren't working with each other. They aren't vibing off each other. They're not coming together like the Suicide Squad. They're not coming together like you might have with Guardians of the Galaxy. Hell, they aren't even coming together like you might get in Ocean's 11. There's so much emphasis put on the visuals, jumping from planet to planet, giving us these slow motion comic book panel moments that you really don't get to know all these characters. And then the other thing is this storyline blatantly takes whole ideas, not only from Star Wars, but from Harry Potter and Marvel. But I have to say that in all those other examples, including the Harry Potter series and Star Wars and Marvel, they were done better than what you see here. And I know a lot of people are going to ooh and ah over, like I said, the visual style and stuff like that, but the storyline for me is just not there. But I will do a full breakdown. I will go into details. It will be spoiler heavy because I just have to explain some of the reasons why I had the problems with the story, with the characterizations. It's the same problem that people complain about with Rogue One. You had all these characters and they were smushed together and you really didn't get any time with them except for Jyn and Andor, and you jump from planet to planet. It's the same thing here, pushed to the max, because the emphasis was on the visual, quote unquote, storytelling, but the characterizations and making us feel for these characters, and more importantly, see how they work together and how their personalities vibe off each other. Absolutely zip. I kind of side more with the critics and not the audience scores. I would give it less than 50%. If you really wanted this to be the thing that set off all the other ancillary media, then you really should have concentrated on this and make us really like these characters and want to find out more about who they are and where they come from. You don't get that in here. At least I didn't. Rebel Moon is extremely cinematic across the board, but in my opinion, it doesn't replace Star Wars as an option for adults. Because if you want Star Wars, you have the much better done Andor series. Rebel Moon is its own property with its own set of problems. That's my view on this. As always, like, subscribe, and share, and I will see you in the next video.